Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst. I am Rasan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for today.
2 people arrested in Horana with 45 kilograms of heroin. Report of the Presidential Commission appointed to probe the April 21st attacks tabled in Parliament. Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage acquitted and released in the case filed over misappropriation of 3.9 million rupees belonging to a trade union. President Xi declares complete victory in eradicating absolute poverty in China.
On to your lead story now. The report compiled by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the 2019 April 21st attacks was submitted to Parliament today. It was announced by Leader of the House, Minister Dinesh Gunawardena.
April 21 වන දින සිදු වූ බෝම්බ ප්‍රහාරය සම්බන්ධයෙන් පරීක්ෂා කර විමර්ශන.
The report compiled by the Presidential Commission probing the April 21st attacks was submitted to Parliament with the approval of the House in both Sinhala and English. We request the Speaker to release this highly anticipated report to the public of the country.
රටේ දැන ගැනීම සඳහා නිදහස් කරන ලෙස ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
Honourable Speaker, we need 3 days to debate about this report. There is only negligence being reported.
මේක කතානායකතුමාට බාර දුන්නා. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ පුස්තකාල දැම්මා. ඒ වාර්තාවේ කරුණු ගොඩක් තියෙනවා.
This is submitted to the Parliament. However, Ranil Wickremesinghe has cunningly escaped from the report. Accusations are levelled against former President Maithripala Sirisena for neglecting responsibilities. There are no accusations against Ranil Wickremesinghe. The government is taking the complete opposite direction. When their actions are met with criticism, they reverse it. They said they will not release this report. However, they have published it now. They appointed a committee consisting of ministers to study a report prepared by legal professionals. People like Johnston, Rohita, Chamal, who don't know anything, are being appointed to study the report. This is a disgrace to the others.
ඔන්නෝ જાතිය මේ අඩු ගානේ මුකුත් දුන්නමක් නැති කට්ටිය පත් කළා මේක අධ්‍යයනය කරා. ඒතකොට මොකද්ද මේ විකාර? අර අයට අපහාසයක් නේ.
තාම වගකීමෙන් අපි කියනවා මේ සියලු කරුණු පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට වාදම් මේ වෙනකොට වාර්තා වෙලා තියෙනවා අපි කිසිම.
We have submitted our facts to the Parliament. We will not conceal this. A committee has been appointed to provide a brief of the initial report prepared. It is a norm.
සහ ඒ පිළිබඳ අධ්‍යයනයක් කිරීමට කැබිනට් අනුගමනයක් පත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක සාමාන්‍ය සම්ප්‍රදායක් රටක.
අධ්‍යයනය කරනවා කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? දැන් පොඩි උන් අධ්‍යයනය කරනවානේ. කොහොමද අධ්‍යයනය කරන්නේ? අවුරුදු 4-5 අධ්‍යයනය කරනවානේ. කොහොමද කරන්නේ?
Even kids experiment. They dismantle to see what is inside. This is the same thing that this committee does too. They use the suffering of the people who were impacted following the attack and came to power. To have the power, they need support from certain groups. So the report should be made based on those facts. The committee was appointed to provide a report to identify who should be our enemies and friends.
බලන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඔය සෙට් එක කරන්න ඔය ජොන්ස්ටන්ලා එහෙම ඕකේ කොළ කඩලා රොකට් හදලා රොකට් යවන්නේ වගේ බලා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ ඇරෙන්න වෙන මොකුත් උතන අධ්‍යයනයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
ජනාධිපති කොමිෂන් එකෙන් ආපු වාර්තාව එහෙම් පිටින්ම කතානායකතුමාට දුන්නු වාර්තාව.
This is available in the Parliament. Anyone can have a look. We cannot travel the country with copies of this report. This is related to national security and should be addressed with caution.
හොයා බලන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා. මේවා ඇත්තම පිටපත් අරගෙන රටවටේ එළියට දාන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. ඒකට ප්‍රධාන හේතුව තමයි මේකේ ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව සම්බන්ධව තියෙන කාරණයක්. සහ ඒක බොහොම පරිස්සමට තමයි කරන්න ඕන.
Speaking to Vion News, former Prime Minister and leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, spoke on the Presidential Commission of Inquiry's report on the April 21st attacks and the United Nations Human Rights Council resolution.
The Commission had to acknowledge that I was not informed and there is no finding against any other ministers from the United National Party. So we really have not been in it. We have been outside that.
But the Commission accuses you of having shown a lax approach towards Islamic extremism. Do you agree with that?
No. After the Paris bombing, I got the police to start a religious extremism unit. It followed all the extremism. There was a separate group investigating these matters. Secondly, I was drafting the new counter-terrorism law. We got help from UK. Thirdly, whenever the security forces brought these matters up or the police, I said take action, crack down hard, but first consult the Attorney General or get legal advice, otherwise you get caught up in a series of cases instead of doing investigations. My issue is, again, as I told you, I have not seen it, but if you go by the criteria for political responsibility or the criteria for criminal responsibility, there is no such thing called a lax attitude. How do you judge attitude, whether you are lax or not? I don't know. I certainly haven't tolerated extremism and I won't.
UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet tabled her annual report on the human rights situation in Sri Lanka. This was during an interactive dialogue on the report at the 46th session of the UN Human Rights Council.
Despite commitments made in 2015, the current government, like its predecessor, has failed to pursue genuine truth-seeking or accountability process. Moreover, the systems, structures, policies, and personnel that gave rise to such grave violations in the past remain and have recently been reinforced. The independence of the judiciary, the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, the National Police Commission, and other key bodies has been deeply eroded by the recently adopted 20th Constitutional Amendment. The policy of forced cremation of COVID-19 victims has caused pain and distress to the minority Muslim and Christian communities. Successive government commissions have failed to credibly establish truth and ensure accountability. The latest commission of inquiry, appointed in January 2021 to review the findings of previous commissions, promises to repeat this cycle without meaningful result. My office stands ready to continue monitoring the human rights situation, including progress towards accountability and reconciliation.
Sri Lanka rejects High Commissioner's report, which is unjustifiably broadened its scope and mandated further, incorporating many issues of governance and matters that are essentially domestic for any self-respecting sovereign country. It is regrettable that the High Commission's office published its report, accompanied by an unprecedented propaganda campaign on it, and refused to publish our comments on the report as an addendum. Sri Lanka calls upon the members of this council that any resolution which is based on this report be rejected by the council and be brought to a closure.
In more local news, 2 army officers have been arrested for the possession of 45 kilograms of heroin in Horana today.
One of the suspects who was arrested by the Horana Police Special Investigation Unit is a deserter. The other suspect is in active service. 30th January 2020, 192 kilograms of heroin and 10 firearms were discovered at a house in Horana. 6th June 2020, 2 suspects arrested with 1 kilogram and 28 grams of heroin in Gonapula. 3rd September 2020, 5 suspects arrested with a stock of heroin concealed in a lorry transporting coconuts.
It has been revealed that no inquiries have been made from other state institutions that were in charge of the management of the lands in the Rambakan Oya Forest Reserve when handing them over to private investors.
The transfer of lands in the Rambakan Oya Forest Reserve to investors commenced in October 2020. It was by the approval of the Cabinet of Sri Lanka that 10,750 acres of land were being leased out for corn cultivation in the historic Rambakan Oya Forest Reserve. The southern boundary of the historic Rambakan Oya has been cleared. It was confirmed that the water sources had been dried up. Following mass deforestation. With forest areas dwindling, elephants have begun to encroach on the Pullibedda village. What was once considered the herbal park of King Buddhadasa is now a barren, desolate land.
Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage was acquitted and released by the Colombo High Court today pertaining to the case filed over the criminal misappropriation of 3.9 million rupees belonging to a trade union. The case was called up in the presence of Colombo High Court Judge Aditya Patabandike. The minister was acquitted and released from all 3 counts filed against him, as the High Court judge observed the prosecution had failed to prove the charges filed against the accused beyond reasonable doubt. Taking a look back at one of our local stories, an accepted law has still not been passed to remove and relocate those living in high-risk areas prone to natural disasters. This was revealed during a session of the COPE last evening.
The errors in the law came to light when officials engaged in the process of relocating people living in high-risk areas prone to landslides in the Kandy district were summoned to COPE for a progress review. Honourable Chairman, actually there is a legal issue here. We have submitted an NBRO Act which grants us the legal authority to remove people from high-risk zones. Right now we have no legal power, but through the Act we will receive it. It is in the final stage. It is at the Attorney General's Department. There is a delay of around 5 years. We are finding difficulty in this situation. We have included it in the letter we will be sending the Secretary. Although we say that we finished everything to do with it, the Attorney General's Department might add to it. We also believe that this is an essential part of the process as the Parliament, because we have to finally approve this. Meanwhile, Secretary of Defence, retired General Kamal Gunaratne, informed the COPE the process of transferring government lands to plantation companies is marred in irregularities. During the District Secretary's meeting, we extensively spoke about this. We also brought down officers from the LRC. The problem here is that when lands have been given to plantation companies, we noticed foul play. When we read the agreements, we wonder if lawyers drafted them or uneducated people drafted them. Nothing can be done with them. These lands have been given to plantation companies temporarily. These are state lands, which means they belong to the LRC. The LRC doesn't know anything about these lands. If we are to construct a road or even widen a road, we have to go through the plantation companies, even though we own the lands and the companies are on lease. If we are to widen 2 feet from the road, we have to pay the plantation companies.
නමුත් කුලියට දීලා තියෙනවා ඒ කියන්නේ බද්දකට දීලා තියෙනවා වතු සමාගම. ඒතකොට පාර පළල් කරන්න ඕන නම් ඕකෙන් පාරේ තීරුව අඩි දෙකක් ගන්න ඕන නම් ඒකට අපි වත්තට ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. ඒ සමාගමට ගෙවන්න ඕනේ.
The first term for the year 2021 of government and government-approved private schools ends today. The ordinary level examination is set to begin on the 1st of March. The Commissioner General of Examinations, Sanat B. Pujita, who was present at the Jatika Mehevara program telecast on TV1, expressed his views regarding the preparations for the examination.
මෙවර විභාගයේදී අපි විශේෂතා රාශියක් ඇති කරලා තියෙනවා. ඔබ කවුරුත් දන්නවා මේ COVID-19 වසංගතය.
At this examination, we have made a few changes. For the students who are in quarantine due to COVID-19, we have established an extra classroom in every examination center. We have paid special attention to the possibility of a student contracting COVID-19, upon which we have taken a decision to create several special centers for the Western Province. If a student contracts the virus, they can write the exam from that special center. We have mailed admissions to all schools. If a student has not received admissions, they can log on to the Sri Lanka Examinations Department's website and download the admission. We also know the admission process might be done wrong by schools, students, or even by us. If that is the case, the teachers and the principals have been given authority to log on to our website and access the amendments tab, through which subject changes, medium changes and name changes can be done. Once the amendment is done, a printout of it must be attached with the admission and sent to the chief supervisor of the hall.
සංශෝධනය කළා ඒකෙන් print out එකක් අරන් අර ප්‍රවේශ පත්‍රයත් එක්ක අමුණලා යවන්නට ඕන විභාග ශාලාධිපතිතුමාට.
And that's a wrap of this edition of Lunchtime News. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Azra Hassan. Thank you for watching. Take care.